What if the dragon wasn't the villain to be slain, but the very beast being worshipped? What if the entire narrative, the very foundation of our understanding of love and loyalty, was a carefully constructed lie, not to protect us from monsters, but to make us into them? This is not a video about fairy tales. This is an autopsy of the most successful propaganda campaign in human history. A campaign so effective it has shaped the deepest desires of every boy and girl in the Western world for centuries. Before we begin, if you're serious about personal growth, not just the comforting lies, but the brutal, unvarnished truth, then you'll find real value in my ebook, The Black Book of Human Nature. It's a practical manual that breaks down the suppressed truths of human behavior, giving you the tools to finally understand yourself and the world more deeply. The link is in the pinned comment. Imagine the scene. You are a young boy tucked into bed. The room is dark save for the hall-light spilling in from the doorway. A comforting voice reads you a story. It's a story of a beautiful, kind girl trapped in a life of cruelty and drudgery. She is Cinderella, she suffers, she endures, she remains sweet and gentle despite it all. And then the magic happens. A fairy godmother, a pumpkin coach, glass slippers. She goes to a ball and captures the heart of a prince. The clock strikes midnight. She flees, but the prince finds her. The slipper fits. She is rescued. She is lifted from her ashen hearth and placed upon a throne, and they live, as the book closes, happily ever after. There is a feeling of joy, of cosmic justice that settles in your young heart. The good are rewarded. Love conquers all. This feeling is the hook. It is the most potent emotional drug you will ever be administered. It feels like hope, but it is not hope. It is a poison wrapped in a promise. It is the first dose of the Cinderella deception. Let's dissect the story not as a child, but as a strategist. Let's look at the cold, hard data of the plot. What is the core transaction of Cinderella? A woman of lower social status uses a temporary magical enhancement of her beauty to attract the most powerful, highest status male in the kingdom. The sole qualifying factor for her beyond her inherent beauty is her suffering. His qualifying factors are his title, his kingdom, his resources, his hypergamy's value. She is lifted from her lowly station to the highest station possible. This is not a love story. This is a vertical mobility story. Love is the justification for the ascent. Now consider the alternative. What if Cinderella had fallen in love with the court jester or the stable boy? A story about a beautiful girl who chooses a man of her own station, who builds a life with him in a cottage, who finds happiness in simple mutual devotion. That story is not told. It is not sold. It doesn't resonate because it doesn't tap into the primal hypergamy's impulse. The Cinderella story resonates across centuries and cultures because it is a perfect allegory for the dual mating strategy. Secure resources and provisioning from a reliable man, but seek the genes and status from the highest value man you can attract. The prince is the ultimate man, and he offers the ultimate provision, a kingdom. This isn't just a cynical reading of a children's story. This is a pattern etched into the bedrock of human history, a pattern so consistent it becomes invisible like the air we breathe. Let me give you a story that is Cinderella stripped of the magic and the music. It is a story from the final desperate days of the Roman Empire. A young patrician woman, let's call her Cornelia, from a family whose fortune and influence are fading. Her father has made bad bets, backed losing emperors. Their villa on the Palatine Hill is mortgaged. Their name is becoming a whisper. They are in essence living in the cinders of their former glory. Then a new power rises. A Germanic warlord, a Frankish king, a man named Odoacer, who would soon depose the last Roman emperor. He is brutal, uncultured by Roman standards, but he has an army. He has power. He is the new prince. Cornelius's father, in a move of sheer survival, presents his daughter to Odoacer. She is beautiful, educated, a symbol of the very Roman civilization he is conquering. For Odoacer, taking her is a symbol of his legitimacy. For Cornelia, it is a rescue. It is a ticket from a decaying world into the new regime. She doesn't love him. She might fear him, but she goes. She exchanges her loyalty to a dying Rome for a place in the new order. This is the Cinderella story without the fairy godmother. It is raw. It is real. and it is the hypergamous imperative in its purest, most survival-based form. There was no joy in this for Cornelia, only the cold, hard calculus of survival, the same calculus that underpins the fairy tale we were all sold. The data from our own time confirms this ancient hardwired script. A landmark 2014 study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology examined mate selection criteria across dozens of cultures. The findings were starkly consistent. While men universally prioritized youth and physical attractiveness, proxies for fertility, women placed a significantly higher premium on status and resource acquisition potential. This is not a social construct. It is an evolutionary imperative. A woman whose investment in offspring is immense through pregnancy and nurturing is biologically programmed to seek a partner who can provide resources and protection. The Cinderella story is simply this biological imperative romanticized and set to music. The prince is not just a handsome man. He is the ultimate resource provider. His castle is the ultimate security. The happily ever after is the genetic payoff for a successful hypergamous choice. This is the reliability of the pattern. It is as reliable as gravity. You can be shocked by it. You can rage against it, or you can, like a philosopher, simply accept it as a law of human nature and begin to build your understanding from there. But the deception runs deeper than just the story. The true genius of the Cinderella deception is in the character of Cinderella herself. She is passive. She is a victim. She does not scheme. She does not plot her ascent. She is simply good and kind and beautiful, and her reward is delivered to her by magic and by a prince's pursuit. This is the most insidious part of the lie. It teaches women that their hypergamous desire, their innate drive to secure the highest status male, is not a conscious strategic choice, but a passive virtue that will be rewarded by the universe. It inoculates them from the responsibility of their own mating strategy. And for men, it is even more devastating. It teaches men that if they are simply good and hardworking, like the servants in the story, they will be overlooked. The ultimate prize goes not to the most virtuous or the hardest working, to the man of highest status, and the woman who wins him does so through passive virtue and beauty, not active pursuit. It creates a world of invisible transactions where men are left confused, building their cottages while women are waiting for a palace, believing their mere goodness entitles them to one. Let me give you a modern story, a story that will play out in 1,000 cities tonight. A man, let's call him Alex. Alex is a good man. He works as a software engineer. He is reliable. He is kind. He has a good heart. He meets a woman, Sarah. They date. He builds a life with her in his mind. He works harder. He saves for a ring. He envisions a future in a nice suburban home. He is building his cottage with love and dedication. But Sarah has a secret Cinderella script running in the back of her mind. Alex is a good man, but is he a prince? Does he have a kingdom? Or is he just a comfortable, safe cottage? Then through work, she meets David. David is a founder, a man with intense focus, with ambition, with a kind of ruthless drive that Alex lacks. David is the modern prince. He doesn't have a castle, but he has a penthouse and a vision that promises one. The attraction is instantaneous, magnetic. When Sarah leaves Alex for David, Alex is shattered. He is confused. But I was a good man, he cries. I was loyal. I was building a future for us. He doesn't understand. He was playing by the rules of the fairy tale. Be good, work hard, and you will be rewarded with love. But Sarah was playing by the rules of Hyperam. Secure the best available option. Alex wasn't betrayed by Sarah's wickedness. He was betrayed by his own belief in the Cinderella deception. He never realized that the story wasn't about the virtue of the woman in the cinders, but about the status of the prince who rescues her. His shock is the shock of every man who discovers the rules of the game are not what he was taught. This is the core of the black pill. It is not nihilism. It is the painful, shocking, but ultimately liberating process of swallowing a bitter truth. The black pill is about understanding the vast cultural superstructure that has been built to conceal it, to romanticize it, and to make men complicit in their own exploitation. The fairy tale is that superstructure. It is the glittering, beautiful lie that keeps men like Alex building their cottages, hopping for a princess, while the princesses are all looking for a king. The curiosity that should be burning in you now is a simple one. If this is true for Cinderella, what other stories have been weaponized against me? What other lies have I built my life upon? The historical record is littered with the corpses of empires and the men who built them, all caught in the same deceptive web. Consider the fate of the samurai in late 19th century Japan. For centuries, the samurai were the pinnacle of masculine virtue, warriors, men of honor, status, and discipline. Their hypergami's value was immense, but with the Meiji Restoration, Japan modernized. The samurai were disbanded. Their swords were taken. Their status evaporated overnight, replaced by industrialists and bankers, the new princes. What happened to the wives and daughters of the samurai? The ones who had been taught to value the warrior. Many of them, driven by that same hypergami's imperative, shifted their allegiance. They sought marriages with the new merchant class, the men with the new form of power, economic power. The samurai, clinging to his code of honor, was left a relic, a ghost in his own country, wondering why the virtues he embodied were no longer enough to secure the loyalty he had been promised. His story is a historical echo of Alex's story. The platform of status shifted and female loyalty following the hypergamma script shifted with it. This is the reliability of the pattern across time and space. It is a brutal, predictable, and awe-inspiring force of nature. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a shattered myth. The warm, joyful feeling of the bedtime story is gone, replaced by the cold, shocking clarity of a biological and historical reality. But this is not a cause for despair. This is the beginning of inspiration. Because the first step to winning any game is to understand the real rules. You cannot win chess by playing checkers on the board. For centuries, men have been playing checkers on a chessboard, following the rules of a game that doesn't exist, and then wondering why they keep losing. The inspiration comes from putting down the checkers piece and finally learning how the chess pieces move. The Cinderella deception has kept you in the dark. Recognizing it is the first defiant strike of a match in that darkness. It is the moment you stop being a pawn in someone else's story and start writing your own. This is the power of the black pill philosopher to stare into the abyss of uncomfortable truths, not with fear, but with the quiet determination to use that truth as a foundation for an unshakable life. But the deception does not end with Cinderella. In fact, Cinderella is merely the introductory course. The fairy tale industrial complex has produced an entire curriculum designed to manage your expectations and engineer your desires. If you think the story of the servant girl and the prince is a potent lie, wait until you see the story crafted for the princesses themselves. Now, we will descend into a darker, more twisted forest. We will examine the tale of Little Red Riding Hood, and you will discover it is not a warning for young girls about strange men in the woods, but a terrifyingly precise blueprint of the female journey, a map of desire, risk, and the true nature of the predator. The Cinderella deception taught you the destination of the female hypergami's quest. The next part will reveal the dark and dangerous path she is willing to walk to get there. If Cinderella is the allegory for the destination, the hypergama's ascent to the highest possible station, then the story that follows is the map of the journey itself. It is a darker, more primal tale, one that strips away the ballrooms and glass slippers and plunges us directly into the shadowy, unconscious forest of female desire. We have been taught that Little Red Riding Hood is a simple cautionary fable, a warning for young girls to obey their mothers and avoid the dangers of strange men. This is perhaps the greatest misdirection of all. The truth is far more unsettling, far more profound. Little Red Riding Hood is not a story about the danger of the predator. It is a story about the allure of the predator. It is a detailed seagraphy of the female journey, a narrative that encodes the fundamental attraction to dominant, high-risk, high-reward masculinity. The very same traits that the prince in Cinderella possesses, but here they are raw, untamed, and stripped of his royal title. This is the dark underbelly of the hypergami's impulse, the path through the woods that every Cinderella must secretly walk before she can pretend to be surprised by her prince at the ball. Let us walk into this forest together. The story begins, as all such journeys do, in the world of the feminine, the domestic, the safe. The girl, Little Red Riding Hood is given a task by her mother. Take this basket of nourishment to your sick grandmother. Stay on the path. This is the world of provision, of rules, of safety. It is the world of the weak male, the reliable, safe, but ultimately unexciting provider. The mother represents the voice of pragmatic, security-focused female advice. She is the part of the female psyche that seeks to minimize risk and maximize predictable outcomes. But note, the girl is not named for her virtue or her kindness, but for a piece of apparel, a red hood. Red, the color of blood, of passion, of danger, of awakening. From the very beginning, she is marked. She is not an innocent blank slate. She is a creature of powerful instincts cloaked in the vibrant color of life itself. The moment she steps off the path, she is not making a mistake. She is answering a call. She is following a deeper, more ancient programming than her mother's warnings. And then he appears, the wolf. He is not a prince. He is not civilized. He does not arrive in a gilded carriage. He is pure, unvarnished id. He is strength, cunning, confidence, and raw predatory power. He is the embodiment of the dark triad traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy that in controlled doses trigger an irresistible attraction in the female psyche. This is not a controversial claim. It is supported by cold, hard data. Numerous studies in evolutionary psychology, including work published in sources like the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, have shown that women, particularly at the peak of their fertility during ovulation, exhibit a heightened attraction to men displaying signs of social dominance and even a degree of antisocial assertiveness. The wolf is the ultimate dominant male. He does not ask for permission. He takes. He does not follow the path. He is the master of the woods. And what is Little Red Riding Hood's reaction to him? Is it sheer terror? No. In the oldest versions of the tale, like the one collected by the Brothers Grimm, she is not initially afraid. She is curious. She engages with him. She finds him fascinating. She tells him exactly where she is going. This is the crucial, overlooked moment. This is the visualization of the female attraction to the dangerous man. An attraction that operates on a level deeper and more visceral than the calculated security-seeking of the Cinderella script. Let me give you a story that is Little Red Riding Hood played out not in a fairy tale forest, but in the concrete canyons of a modern city. Imagine a young woman, let's call her Chloe. K.H. Lowe is a bright, promising law student. She is dating Mark, a kind, dependable medical resident. Mark is the path. He is the future her mother approves of, a high-status provider, a safe bet. He talks about their future home, their children, their secure life. But then at a gallery opening, she meets Julian. Julian is an artist, but not a starving one. He is successful, but ruthlessly so. He is charismatic, but in a way that feels dangerous. He looks at her not with the admiring gaze of Mark, but with the appraising, predatory stare of a connoisseur. He doesn't ask about her career plans. He tells her what he sees in her eyes. He is the wolf. And K.H. Lowe, the high-achieving, rational law student, feels a jolt of electricity she has never felt with Mark. She finds herself giving Julian her number. She finds herself making excuses to Mark. She finds herself drawn into Julian's world of late nights, intense conversations, and thrilling unpredictability. She knows on some level that he is bad for her, that he is risky, that he could break her. But the attraction is magnetic. This is the straying from the path. This is the modern Red Riding Hood choosing the fascinating danger of the woods over the boring safety of the prescribed route. The shock in this story is not her betrayal of Mark, but the terrifying power of an instinct that overrides logic, security, and even self-preservation. The wolf, of course, does not play by the rules of the path. He races ahead. He consumes the grandmother, the symbol of matriarchal wisdom, the final bastion of the safe feminine world. He then impersonates her, getting into her bed. This is a deeply symbolic act. The wolf doesn't just destroy the safe haven, he perverts it. He takes the symbols of comfort and nurture, the grandmother, the bed, and turns them into a trap. This is the moment the male, the dangerous attraction, infiltrates the very core of the woman's world and twists it to his own ends. When Little Red Riding Hood arrives, she enters this corrupted space. The famous dialogue begins. Grandmother, what big eyes you have. All the better to see you with, my dear. Grandmother, what big ears you have. All the better to hear you with, my dear. Grandmother, what big hands you have. All the better to grab you with, my dear. And finally, the climactic horrifying line, Grandmother, what a big mouth you have. All the better to eat you with, my dear. This is not a children's game. This is a metaphor for the dawning visceral realization of the true nature of the predator. It is the moment of cognitive dissonance where the initial attraction curdles into the realization of genuine danger. The big eyes, ears, and hands are the attributes of his heightened perception and power, the very things that attracted her. The big mouth is the consummation of that power, the moment it turns from allure to annihilation. This dynamic is not confined to fairy tales or modern dating. It is a historical constant, a pattern that is played out on the grand stage of empires and their courts. Consider the court of Louis XV of France. The king was the ultimate prince, the apex of the hypergamous hierarchy. But the women who vied for his attention, the famous mistresses like Madame de Pompadour, were not Cinderellas waiting passively. They were Red Riding Hoods who had mastered the walk through the woods. They used their wit, their charm, their education, and their power, not just to attract the king, but to navigate the deadly politics of Versailles, a forest filled with literal and metaphorical wolves. They understood that to reach the prince, one had to be willing to engage with the predator. They lived in a world where a wrong word could lead to exile or imprisonment in a convent. The story of Jean Dubarry, the last mistress of Louis XV, is a perfect example. Born the illegitimate daughter of a seamstress, she used her stunning beauty and charismatic allure to rise through the ranks of Parisian courtesans, captivating a series of powerful, dangerous men before finally catching the eye of the aging king. Her entire life was a journey through the woods, a constant dance with wolves of increasing size and power until she reached the very top. She didn't just find a prince. She fought her way to him through a gauntlet of predators using the tools of the Red Riding Hood: curiosity, engagement, and a fearless acceptance of danger. Her story and thousands like it reveal the brutal truth. The Cinderella fantasy of passive virtue being rewarded is a lie. The reality is the Red Riding Hood journey of active, risky navigation of the hierarchy of male power. So what is the moral of this darker story? In the sanitized versions, a woodsman, a strong, virtuous male, bursts in, kills the wolf, and saves the girl and her grandmother. Order is restored. The path is vindicated. But this ending is a pathetic tact on comfort, a lie designed to soften the tale's terrifying core. In the older, more authentic versions, like the French The Story of Grandmother, there is no woodsman. The resolution is far more ambiguous and psychologically resonant. Sometimes the girl uses her own cunning to escape. Sometimes the story ends in the consumption. The real point is that the woodsman is a fantasy. The reliable, strong man who arrives to save the day at the last moment does not exist in the real dynamics of attraction and power. The girl is alone in the cottage with the wolf she chose. The consequences of her journey are hers alone to face. This is the ultimate black pill realization of the tale. There is no Deus ex machina. There is no salvation from outside the dynamic you have chosen to enter. You are either consumed by the predator or you become clever enough to survive him, but you are never truly saved by the man on the path. This brings us to the grand synthesis, the connection between the glittering ballroom and the dark forest. Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood are not two separate stories. They are two chapters of the same epic. Cinderella is the public-facing myth, the fantasy of the reward. It is the story women tell themselves and the world about how love should work. Passive virtue rewarded with ultimate security. It is the joy, the inspiration, the glittering hope. But Little Red Riding Hood is the private subconscious reality, the gritty process. It is the map of the actual journey filled with danger, attraction to the forbidden, and the terrifying allure of the predator. It is the shock, the curiosity, the brutal reliability of primal instinct. A woman must first be a Red Riding Hood, willing to stray from the safe path and engage with the dangerous dominant males in the woods before she can ever have a chance of being a Cinderella at the ball. The prince at the ball is simply the wolf who has put on a crown. He possesses the same core traits, dominance, status, power, but they have been sanitized and legitimized by society. The thrill he provides is the same thrill merely wrapped in velvet instead of fur. Where does this leave you, the man? This dual narrative creates an impossible bind for the modern male. If you are the man on the path, the reliable, safe, provision-oriented person, you are the mother's advice. You are the basket of nourishment. You are the woodsman who arrives too late. You are necessary. You are good, but you are not desired. You are the foundation, but you are not the object of passion. You inspire reliability, but not the thrilling, dangerous curiosity that the wolf inspires. Conversely, if you embrace the wolf, the raw, dominant, unpredictable man, you may trigger intense attraction, but you are the danger. You are the consumption. You are the one who cannot be trusted, who cannot provide a stable happily ever after. You inspire shock and intense curiosity, but not the feeling of safety required for long-term pair bonding. This is the modern man's dilemma, caught between the two archetypes of a fractured fairy tale, neither of which offers a complete picture of a man who is both respected and loved, both desired and trusted. The inspiration, the final emotional hit, does not come from choosing to be the wolf or the woodsman. The inspiration comes from understanding the game so deeply that you transcend the archetypes altogether. The power lies in becoming the author of your own story. The Cinderella deception and the Red Riding Hood revelation are not instructions for how to live. They are diagnostics for understanding the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The man who builds his own kingdom, who forges a mission and a purpose so compelling that it becomes his own forest and his own castle, no longer has to choose a role from a pre-written script. He is not on Red Riding Hood's path, nor is he the wolf stalking her. He is the master of his own territory. He becomes the one whom both the prince and the wolf answer to. He inspires not just the joyful hope of Cinderella or the shocked curiosity of Red Riding Hood, but genuine, profound inspiration. He becomes the new story. This is the end of the fairy tale and the beginning of your own history. The deception is over. The work now begins.